welcome to tonight's Tanya class. We are studying chapter 29, Perek Chaf Tes. As always, every chapter in Tanya is very powerful, and the reason is because it's the Bible of mysticism. So every chapter is laying down a beautiful foundation. We've been talking about the Beinoni. So let's regroup. The Beinoni is somebody that has a godly soul and an animal soul, and so does everyone. The difference and unique image of the Beinoni is that we know that Tzaddik is strictly mono with his godly soul. He just sees godliness, he thinks, talks, acts, but his engine is a godly engine. His natural instinct is all about God and godliness. In other words, as we discussed many times, the idea of Achdut Hashem, the oneness of God, the Tzaddik only sees God and godliness. He doesn't see anything that's not God and godliness. And the truth is, everything really is God and godliness. What in this world has not been created and maintained by God and godliness? Everything. So the tzaddik sees that. Even though, obviously, if you had an animal soul that was alive, he would have a conflict. The godly soul doesn't have any of those conflicts. On the other extreme, the Rasha sees what? Himself and everything. Everything in this world is for him, to serve him, and God doesn't exist unless God wants to give him a present. Then God is welcome. Now, the Beinoni is unique, where the Beinoni has two forces. And when we say two forces, we mean literally two forces. He has a godly soul that basically, it's all God and godliness, but he has an animal soul that is alive and well, that really would like to express itself in all about me, selfish, and do what I want, and I don't necessarily believe, God is everywhere, etc. But the Beinoni is able to take control of his life to the point where, in thought, speech, and action, he bats 100. He gets 100 in all his tests. All his actions are all God and godliness. All his speech is God and godliness, and all his thoughts are that way. But the struggle is from within. So, up until now, we dealt with what happens if he has, these thoughts, and we talked about how pushing them out, and so on and so forth. This chapter is unique because here the battlefield between the godly soul and the animal soul intensifies. In other words, if the Beinoni is going through his life and he has, we spoke of before, he has some kind of thoughts, we say push it out, ignore it. We discussed about pushing the delete button. Here, the fight got a little too strong. We're intense, where the Beinoni's heart got a spiritual disease. I'll tell it to you in Hebrew, I'll translate it, which is called Timtum Halev. What does Timtum Halev mean? The lave is the heart, right? The world of the emotions, the excitement, the passion. In the words of Kabbalah, the practical application would be your love and awe of God come from where? From your heart. So when your heart is primed and working, I love God, I'm in awe of God, I don't want to be disconnected, etc. Now, for any person living and any person trying to serve God, whether it's through prayer, Torah study, or doing any mitzvot, or specifically through prayer, it's very, very important that we're not robots, right? We're not just doing the right thing, which that's great, but we also have our heart into it. Now, what happens when all of a sudden, somehow, the animal soul gets a hold of your heart and closes it down? In the physical world, you know what that would be called? That would be called a heart attack, right? In the spiritual world, you're still alive, you're walking around, you're able to eat, drink, talk, and you're able to think, and you know all the right things. The attack is not in your brain at this point. The attack is on your heart, where basically you're not inspired. You're living an uninspired life. Now, there's two problems with that. Problem number one is that when it comes to all the mitzvot and Torah study, there's two components to every mitzvah. There's the physical structure of the mitzvah. For example, we just had the holiday of Sukkot. So there's a mitzvah to take the lulav and esrog, right? So you have to buy it or borrow it with the right terms, and you take the lulav and esrog and you make the blessing. That's the technical structure of the mitzvah. But we know that every mitzvah, there's a second part. What is that? You put your heart into it. We spoke about that on Sukkot, about the different spiritual dynamics of the lulav and esrog, and we unite all parts of ourselves and all parts of our family and our community. So you're putting your heart and soul into a mitzvah. So if your heart goes into timtum halev, spiritual cardiac arrest, where it's closed down, how are you going to observe that mitzvah with passion? So so you still did the mitzvah, you'll still get the check for the mitzvah, no question asked, no one's taking away your mitzvah, you did it. Because if you do a mitzvah without passion, is it a mitzvah? Absolutely. But you're missing the passion. However, let's talk about prayer. Prayer, if you show up in shul, in synagogue, or at your house, wherever you pray, preferably it's best always to pray in the synagogue. It's a house of prayer. Prayers are, according to Jewish law, answered much better in the synagogue, even if there's no minyan. So what happens if you show up to pray, wherever you're praying, and your heart is closed? In prayer, the main thing is your heart. What's prayer? You're opening up your heart. God, right? Please help me, save my family. Whatever you're praying for, it's all about your heart. If your heart is closed, you're in trouble. You can't pray. And for a Beinoni, prayer is a big part of our lives. Because through prayer, that's how we communicate to God. That's how we work on refining ourselves. That's how we're able to get rid of some of the demons that we have sometimes in ourselves, whether it's thought, or speech, and action. And you pray to God, God, please help me. But if your heart is closed, who's praying? Prayer is by definition an expression of the heart. What's going to happen with your love of God and your awe of God? So here the Alter addresses an important issue, which is basically called a virus where into your heart, and your heart is dulled. That's one area where it's a big issue. Second area where it's a big issue is as follows. We know that there are things which are totally forbidden. According to Torah, we have this 365 negative precepts. Don't do this, don't do that. So obviously, does a Beinoni violate any of those? No, because a Beinoni, as we said, thought, speech, and action, he's 100%, right? He has all the checks. So in the 365, he doesn't do anything he's not supposed to. In the 248, he does everything he's supposed to. Now, if you do everything you're supposed to, and you don't do what you're not supposed to, so guess what you are? What are you?
Exotic.
Not, maybe, possibly, but but again, let's stay focused. If you're doing everything you're supposed to and not doing anything you're not supposed to, possibly, not necessarily. We're talking again. What would I say? If you're doing everything and you're not doing everything, so what do we know? We don't know if you're a tzaddik. Maybe yes, maybe no. We don't know what's going on in your heart. What do we know you are? Huh? What? A Beinoni, possibly. I'll give you another two words. It's called a Jewish robot.
That's a good one.
That's what you are. You're doing all the right things, and you're not doing what you're not supposed to. You're again, this is not a bad thing. You're just a Jewish robot. Now, what does that mean? That means, and it's a great place to be. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it in a negative way. A Jewish robot is a good thing. That means you are robotically doing everything you're supposed to and not doing everything you're not supposed to. Believe me, a lot of people would love to be Jewish robots. However, if you want to be passionately connected to God and have your heart pumping to God, checking it on, checking it off doesn't tell us anything so far yet. So if you really want to be not just a Jewish robot, but you want to be like a Jewish, acrobat, where you're flying, right, where you're excited and you're involved, you need something more than checking things on and off. What do you need to do? You need to go the extra mile. Go the extra mile. What is it called to going the extra mile in Judaism? So going an extra mile in Judaism, I'll say it in Hebrew and I'll translate and I'll explain. Kadesh atzmo b'muterlo. In other words, what does it mean that we're a holy people? A holy people means like this. If you're doing everything, that doesn't mean you're holy. That means you're a Jewish robot, we said, right? Yeah. What does it mean that you're kadosh, you're holy, right? We want to be holy.
And so, passionate.
And passionate, what does that mean? Here's the key word. Kadesh atzmo b'muter lo. 4 words. What does that mean? You sanctify yourself in things that are permissible. So in other words, if you don't do things which are forbidden, and you do all the things you're supposed to, again, Jewish robot. But what happens things which are neutral? For example, let's say you're sitting at home, it's 7 o'clock in the evening, you had a hard day of work, You know what? Whether it's you had a hard day at work or you're just finished, giving the kids dinner, and you want to sit down and chill out a little bit. And you sit down on the couch, you pull out a book, neutral book, and you decide you want to read now for a half hour. Anything wrong with that? No, it's a good thing. You're relaxing. You're reading a book. Nothing wrong with that. Could you say you did something wrong? No. Could you say you did something amazing? No, you're just sitting down and relaxing. But what do you do if you say, you know what, I'm exhausted. I just want to sit down on the couch and relax. But you know what? Even though I would love to chill out, but instead I'm going to take out a chumash or a mishnah. I don't know about Talmud, it might be too complicated or too much stress for your brain, too involved. But let me just, or maybe let me read some Jewish stories, or maybe let me listen to some Jewish meditative music, right? So this way, now I'll be sitting on the couch and relaxing. But guess what? I'll also having a relationship with God, and that will actually probably give you more energy if you just sat there and read a book. That's called kadesh atzmai b'muterlo. Meaning to say is, you could sit and technically do nothing, but you took a neutral experience and you made it into a holy experience. So for example, let's say you want to sit down and, indulge, let's say, in a nice, beautiful, 6-course dinner. Nothing wrong with that. You get kosher food, you make a blessing before, a blessing after, etc. And then you say, you know what? It's kosher, it's mine, I worked for it. I'm going to take 3 of the courses and give it away to a poor person. You didn't have, but if you didn't do that, would you do anything wrong? Could someone say you did a sin? No. Did you miss out on an opportunity? No, you didn't do it. But you took something which was neutral, and now, in order to do that, in order to sanctify yourselves with something which is permissible, guess what? Could you do that if you're just a Jewish robot? No, because you're going to ask one question: do I have to do that? And the answer is no. Is it a sin if I don't do that? No. So obviously, if you're taking the Jewish robotic approach, guess what? You're going to be at neutral. You're going to be great. You'll be doing the right things. You're not going to do the wrong things, etc. But are you going to be living divinely inspired? Like, are you going to push a little extra weight so you're going to get a little more muscle on the Jewish muscle chart? No. So kadesh atzmai muterlo. Could you be in a robotic mood? You have to be your heart has to be a little more pumping. You're a little more passionate. Hey, how can I have a deeper connection with God? How can I score some extra points, bonus points, right? So when does that happen? When you're inspired. What part of you inspired? Your head? No, your head's going to tell you, hey, why do I have to do that? It's mine and my time, and I want to do what I want. And it's an intellectual calculation. But what happens when you say, you know what, I want to go the extra mile. I want to do something to deepen my relationship with God. I don't have to do it. I'm voluntarily doing it. Wow. Now, in order to do that, your heart has to be on fire. But what happens if your heart's not on fire? You just tell me the things I have to do, and I don't want to do anything more, nothing less. Give me the exact box I have to be in. And you have zero interest in going out of it. You used to, and you actually liked it, and you knew if you went out you would feel great, but you're just not motivated. Why are you not motivated? Because what's the source of the problem? The source of the problem is that your heart's dull. Your heart's dull. The heart, stopped pumping. Now, are you alive? Until you're brain dead, you're still alive, right? Don't we know that? But the point, are you really alive? Are you you're not flying. You're not flying. Hi, welcome. You're not flying. You want to start flying. So here the Alter Rebbe addresses this issue, and you see this is a whole different issue than we dealt with till now. Why is this a whole different issue? Because until now, the Yetzirah was trying to get you to do something wrong. He said, I'm not listening to you. Here he was trying to get you to say something wrong. I don't get involved in gossip. He wants to give you negative thoughts. You don't touch it. So you keep on pushing it out. But where is he affecting you? In garments. Thought, speech, and action. Now, as long as he was only trying to hit you in the garments, your core was solid and strong. You're inspired. And he only, so to speak, the battleground was where? In an external battleground. He wasn't able to get into your core and who you really are. The problem with this chapter is, the problem that the Rebbe is addressing in this chapter is, now the Yetzirah got in control of one of the key players. One of who you really are. He got control of your heart, which that's who the person is. As a matter of fact, the Beinani, as we know, who is the Beinani per se in his core? The Beinoni in his core is not really his godly soul. See, by a tzaddik, by a righteous individual, who is the tzaddik? The tzaddik is very simple. His godly soul, that's who he is. That's his core. And the tzaddik, because it's the godly soul, it sees everything as godliness, and there's nothing to get into his heart. His heart is also godly. It's all one. Everything is godliness by him. That's who he is. The Beinoni, as we know, thought, speech, and action he has control over, but he's always having these like spiritual pop-ups, these urges coming from his animal soul, because his animal soul has not been transformed. He has it under control, where he has to deal with it. Hey, you want to get me excited? No problem. But he pushes it right. As soon as it comes up, he knocks it down. Here the problem is that the animal soul got hold of his heart, where he closed his heart. And now, for example, when he sees a poor person, he's not excited and motivated to help the poor person. That's a problem. You lost your spunk of life. So here the Alter Rebbe takes on a whole different approach. And it's an important approach, because the war intensified, and the war went now to a whole different battlefield. And therefore the Alter Rebbe says, okay, what we need to do now, first of all, is, and it's interesting, the Alter Rebbe says we have to name the enemy. Because if you don't name the enemy and call out who the enemy is, how are we going to take over? So first we have to identify who the enemy is, name the enemy, and say, okay, guess what, guys? We have an enemy, a live enemy. Not with outside, within me, literally within me. Once you name the enemy and you know who it is, that's already 50% or maybe even 80% of the problem is solved. Because as long as you don't know the enemy, there's no target. There's no target. If there's no target, how are you going to get rid of it? So here the Alter Rebbe says we got to know who the enemy is. Once we know who the enemy is and what the enemy is, then we'll come up with a plan to load our guns and obliterate the enemy. And we'll talk about what the bullets are, what the gun is, and what the bullets are that we're loading to obliterate the enemy. So the Alter Rebbe says like this: what is the name of the enemy? The name of the enemy is as follows. I'll tell it to you in Hebrew, and I'll translate, and we'll explain. The name of the enemy, the Alter Rebbe says, is, and you might have heard the terms before, Kalipa and Sitra Achra. Now, what does that mean, Kalipa and Sitra Achra? It means like this. We all know that there's only one reality. What is that? Akdas Hashem. The only one real existence is God. Now, so since the only real existence in this world is God, anything that appears, and here's the key word, appears, quote unquote, underlined a few times, appears to be an existence other than God and godliness, you know what that's called? Kalipa. It's like a shell, right? It's not the real thing. The real thing is what's inside. And Sitra Achra means the other side, for a little translation, the other side of God and godliness. Now, what happens when Kalipa and Sitra Achra start taking a stronghold? How does the Kalipa and Sitra Achra define itself, and how does it express itself? It's basically, as we discussed many times, the idea of the ego. God and godliness is no ego, or teeny bit. The opposite, Kalipa and Sitra Achra, is basically now your ego. So now what happens is like this. You're trying to pray. Who's trying to pray? The godly soul is trying to connect to God. What are the Kalipa? Now we name the enemy. Who attacked your heart that it became, so to speak, closed up, or that you're not inspired to go above and beyond the call of duty? Who basically is that enemy? The enemy is called Kalipa and Sitra Achra. What did the Kalipa and Sitra Achra do? The author explains. What did they do? How did they do this? How did they create that your heart should be closed off? And the author explains like this. The godly soul is the spiritual divine light that motivates us, inspires us to do the right thing. That's what the godly soul does. Now, the godly soul shines light into where? Into the animal soul, into your heart, and it gets it inspired. So the Kalipa and Sitra Achra, what they do is they create a wall. And now, if you have, for example, let's say outside the sun, well, it's dark now, but let's say it was during the day and the sun was shining, and let's say there was no windows on this wall. Would any sun come into the wall, into this room? No. What happens now if you have, let's say we have two beautiful big windows, and the sun is shining? Guess what happens? The sun comes in. We have light. So let's say, for example, it's during the day, and we want to use just natural sunlight. So we open up, make sure the windows aren't blocked. The sun is out there, and guess what? We have beautiful light, and we enjoy the light. We can see, we can benefit from the light. What happens if it's midday, whatever time during the day, anytime 10 to 2 while the sun is shining, and you're in this room and you want to study, and the light is on, all of a sudden someone comes along and blocks the windows. Blocks the windows. What happens? Could you see anything in here? No, there's no light is on. You had windows, but now the windows is blocked. So now, what do we need to do? Do we need to get another sun or make the sun bigger? No, that's not the problem. Let's name what the problem here is. We know the sun is out. We know this room could receive the sun because we've had it every single day. We have windows for it to receive it. The problem now is someone blocked the windows. Who is that? We're going to name it. Kalipa and Sitra Achra. Block the windows. So what do you need to do? So the author brings down from the Zohar, and it's very simple. And he gives an example if you're trying to make, let's say, a bonfire. Trying to make a bonfire. And you have this huge trunk of a tree, huge, that you've never seen before. And you put it in the middle of the bonfire and you try to light it. Is it going to light? No. So what you can do one of two things. You can bring more gas and more fire. You know what's going to happen? Not going to work. So the Zohar says, I mean, it's not rocket science, or it's not the major revolution, but the Zohar says, it's common sense. Take the big piece of wood, get your electric saw, right? Your chainsaw, get your axes, chop that thing up into pieces, and you know what happens now? Now you have teeny splinters. Now you take the same fire that you're trying all along, all of a sudden what happens? Boom, you got a fire. So in other words, if you have something blocking, right, you have this big thing, don't try to bring more light or more gas. Break up this mass, and then it'll be easy to light it. Same thing also. If you have something blocking the window, bringing more sun ain't going to help you. You need to unblock it. So now the Torah deals with how do we unblock the Kalipa and Sitra Achra, which is basically blocking from the godly light to inspire you into your heart. So the author lays down a few different routes, and he tells us like this. First of all, you have to lay down the rules and identify, as we said before, name the enemy, Kalipa and Sitra Achra, and ask yourself, who are you? Who are you? Again, if you're a tzaddik, there's no discussion. You're a godly soul, it never gets blocked. Why? Because there's no animal soul there. It's dead. It's conquered. Either it was never existed, or it was obliterated. So there's no conflict. In the animals, in the Beinon, in the Rasha, there's no issue either. His life is his animal soul, and he's not looking to change. The Beinoni is the one that's struggling. And now he comes along, oh my gosh, my heart is shut down. Oh really, your heart shut down? You know why your heart is shut down? Kalipa and Sitra Achra. But here's the question, who are you? Who is the Beinoni? Are you the godly soul, or are you the animal soul? Who is the Beinoni? Is the Beinoni the godly soul or the animal soul? Both is always a good answer. It's like God. It's both God, right? It's God. That's always a home run answer. But who are you? The godly soul, the animal soul?
The godly soul.
You say the godly soul. You say both. Anyone have another opinion?
The animal soul is trying to block it.
Anyone have another opinion?
The animal soul.
Animal soul, there you go. So a great Jewish group. We have 3 different opinions, and now they're leaving it to the rabbi to get into trouble by picking one side or the other, right? Okay, so here we go. And you're all right. That's a Jewish answer. It's a rabbi answer. You're all right. What does that mean? What does that mean as follows? And pay attention. The truth is, I'm going to say the truth of the truth, because it's truth. But then there's the truth of the truth, which means like the truth that cannot be changed. The truth of the truth is that everything is from the godly soul. Everything is the godly soul. Because godliness, as we said, is the only existence. So the truth of the truth is that the Beinoni and the Rasha as well, what is their life force? Sure, God and godliness. So if you say God and godliness, that's always the right answer. All right. Now, but in reality, not the truth of the truth, but the reality on the ground, who is running the Beinoni's life? Very good. The animal soul. And this is where you're right. Right? So you're right, and she's right, and he's right, and everyone's right. Okay. But who's running the Beinoni's life? The animal soul. He's constantly trying to take over. Luckily, the Beinoni made this resolution in his head. I know you want to take over, but guess what? You can drive me crazy up until there's a border. Action, we ain't listening to you. Speech, we ain't listening to you. And thought. So in the real world, in the garment world, doesn't play out. But who is the animal soul? The animal soul, unfortunately, that's who the Beinoni is. The Beinoni is the animal soul. So the Alter Rebbe says, you have to look yourself in the mirror and say to yourself, look at you. Look at yourself, right? And look who I am. I am basically what's running my life, what's trying to run my life in an active way is my animal soul. And as you say that to yourself, and you realize, oh my gosh, even though I want to be a godly person, even though thank God in behavior and in speech and in thought, but the truth is I'm not really a godly person because my animal soul is constantly trying to get the better of me. If I was really through and through, like the tzaddik, which is through and through, it means in the truth of the truth, and in the driver that's driving his day-to-day life was godliness, he doesn't have any urges for anything, to do anything wrong or to do anything inappropriate. The Beinoni unfortunately does, but he stops it short of thought, speech, and action. But if anything in the internalness of his life, in his essence, there's conflict, there's war. There's war constantly. So the Alter Rebbe says, in order to stop, the goal is now to stop the animal soul from blocking, which we have a big problem. He just shut down your heart. He went overboard. He crossed the line. So you got to say to him, hey, hello, you, me, my life, oh my gosh, look what's running my life, my animal soul. And you can actually go through many things that unfortunately you fell in the trap of the animal soul, and you actually listen to it at times. We're human, we make mistakes. So not only is that your life force, but actually at times it took over. And the Alter Rebbe lists many different examples of sins that most people go through in their life. I'm not going to do a public confession over here what the Alter Rebbe is saying, but everyone knows in their life different things that we fell into, whether it's small things, big things, etc. Why we fall into it? Because that's really our driver in our life. So the Alter Rebbe says part number one is when you realize that's who you really are, you're going to start feeling bad. And you're going to say, oh my gosh, why am I doing this? That's point number one. Point number two, Alter Rebbe says, that's one approach. Right? The first approach is to look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, listen, I know our essence is God and godliness, but the reality is you have an active drive with it that's not godliness. So you got to basically accept the fact that you're not this perfect human being that you behaving and speaking and thinking that you are. Not to say that to change it, but if you start feeling bad, you're going to not go ahead and block the window from everybody when you're trying to get the light inside. If you don't address it, guess what? If you're not going to address him, he's going to stand there and block the sun from coming in. Not going to allow you to live for your heart to start flowing again. The second approach is, you don't have to go ahead and put yourself down, because that's a dangerous thing to do, which, it's only unique to this chapter, only because the war got so intense. I am a godly person, you have to say to yourself, I want to do what God wants, etc. But this behavior, what you're doing right now, of not allowing me to express myself in my heart, and to pray appropriately, and to do my mitzvot with passion, or to sanctify myself with things that are permissible, that's inappropriate. And the Alter uses some specific names. And tell your animal soul, you're bad, you're wicked, you're mean, and so on and so forth. With all these terms that everyone can use their own language, right? That's the only time you can use it, if you're trying to knock out the animal soul. But do it, obviously, in a holy way. All right. What happens now? You start knocking out the animal soul. But now, as you knock out the animal soul, what happens? The light can start coming in. Why is the light coming in? And here the author explains, and it's important to know this, because when you go to war, do you want to know you're going to be successful, or you want to know you might lose? Anybody that goes to war, anyone that goes out to try to accomplish something, do you believe that you're going to be successful, or do you believe you're going to lose?
No, you want to be successful.
You believe you're going to win, otherwise you're not going to win for sure not. The first step is you have to know you're going to win. You have to know that you're going to be successful. Because if you don't believe you're going to be successful, you know what's going to be? You're not going to be successful. So the author says, guess what? Know one thing for certain. The author teaches us the DNA of the godly soul and the animal soul. And it's extremely important to know this, therefore you know that when you're going to battle the animal soul, or the Kalipa and Sitrach that's blocking you from being inspired, you will win. And the author says as follows. Because the reality is, what's real? Like we discussed before. I didn't mean regular real, but what's the real truth? The truth of the truth. What's really the only thing that's real? God and godliness. God and godliness is the only thing that's real. Now, so since the only thing that's really, really real is God and godliness, is the animal soul real? No. Why not? Why not? Because because again,
edging God out.
Could you have two real things? Could you have two real things? You have one real thing. Or give me a simple example. An artist makes an original painting. One original painting, only one in the world. Someone goes ahead and makes copies. You know, and today you scan it into the computer, it could be perfect. How many real artists' drawings of this scene is there? There's one. There's only one real one. You can have multiple copies. Are they real? Yes or no? They're real to the sense where it depicts the scene, but it's not the real one originally. Same thing also. The godly soul is real. Yes. That's real. The animal soul, is that really real? No, because it's an act. It's an act. The whole animal soul dance, the whole Kalipa and Sitrach Achra, that's not real. It's a dance and a show and an act to get you, to test you actually, to veer off. To see, am I going to fight back and say, no, you're not going to block the view. I need the sunlight. I need my heart to work so I can pray to God. I need my heart to work so I can go above and beyond the call of duty. I need my heart to work so I can be living a passionate life. So in other words, the Kalipa and Sitrach Achra is not really real. What's really, really real is your godly soul. So since we know what's really, really real is the godly soul, the Kalipa and Sitrach Achra is not really real, the animal soul is not really, really real. So what happens when I confront the Kalipa and Sitrach Achra and I say, hey, go away? Does it really have a backbone to fight back? No, because it's not real. You're exposing it that it's not real. And you tell them, hey, you're going against God. And you yourself know that the only real existence is God because God created you. So you yourself know it. So since you know it, since once a person knows that the real truth is God and godliness, and the animal soul is a false story, it's a good story, and it lasts as long as you don't knock it out, and as long as it keeps on telling the story and people believe it. But if once you say, hey, listen, we all know the truth, you know what happens to the animal soul? It goes away. It goes away. So in other words, the author says, guess what? Will you be successful? Absolutely. Because you're dealing, in the godliness, you're dealing with the truth. And the truth will always pass all tests. The falsehood is not going to pass all tests, because it's false. By definition, it's false. And the author gives an example from a story in the Torah. What was the story in the Torah? We all know that when God decided to give us a gift, the land of Israel, so the Jewish people sent, we're not going into the whole detail of the story, it's a very, very important story of Jewish history, but I just want to give you, for the parables, I'm going to give you the heart of the story. The Jewish people send spies to check out the land of Israel. And they go to the land of Israel, they scout it out, and they come back with a terrible report. And one of the things they say, quote from the Bible, from the Torah, and they say that the people living there, the Canaanites at that time, and they say, Ki chazak hu mimenu. Now, there's a literal translation, but as the Talmud explains it, But what they're saying is, they're not saying that the Canaanites are stronger than us, but actually what they're saying, that the Canaanites are stronger than God. Think about this. The spies come back with a report, and guess what? The Canaanites are stronger than God. That means, think about this. If we try to go into the land of Israel, now obviously we're humans, but we have God with us. And we know that the reason why we're successful in any war is because God's with us. But if I tell you, I would never say it, but if the spies say, guess what? You have people living there that are stronger than God. Guys, don't go. God's going to lose. Not we're going to lose. God's going to lose. They're stronger than God. Based on that, no one's going. They start crying, right? They start crying. The Torah says, Moshe Rabbeinu comes to the Jewish people and starts screaming at them, what are you guys, off your wall? God took you out of Egypt. God gives all these miracles for you. What do you mean it's stronger than God? God is the real strength. And guess what?
Well, wait, he sent new spies.
Who sent it? No, Moshe Rabbeinu comes and screams at the people.
I know, but he sent new spies.
New spies? No.
Other spies.
No.
Three.
No. Let's take this story the way it is. Let's not bring in other stories. They come back with a report that the people there are stronger than God. Look at the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu turns to people and says, what's with you guys? And he gives them like a real speech.
Nobody's stronger than God.
Right? No one's stronger than God. What are you saying? God owes all these miracles. All the people says, okay, great, guess what? We're ready to go. We're ready to go. So the Alter asks a simple question. 1 second. 2 minutes ago, or 5 minutes ago, whatever it was, right? Just a short while before, in their mind, oh my gosh, there's a people that's stronger than God, right? And we're not going. Moshe Rabbeinu gives them a speech, and all of a sudden they're going. They went from non-believers, right? I'm not going to call them atheists. They went from non-believers also into believers. I mean, it's a major, this is like a big step. You went from a mindset that what? The people are stronger than God. In other words, they lack faith. Moshe Rabbeinu gives them a speech, all of a sudden they got faith. I mean, is faith so flimsy that you can switch it on and off so quickly? I mean, faith is strong stuff. Did they have faith or they didn't have faith? Well, from one speech of Moses, they had faith. And the author explains this is exactly what happened. Very simple. The Jewish people, in their core, have faith in God. That's not even a question. It's that if you cut a Jewish person's, God forbid, skin, what's going to come out is not blood, right? We say it's going to come out faith in God. Faith in God is part of us. That's who we are. That's who we are. The Jewish people have faith. So then what happened? And the answer is very simple, the Alter says. It wasn't that they gave up their faith, because if they gave it up, how would they get it back so quickly? What happened was, Kalipa, Vasitrā, Achara, the Yitzchok put a big wall up, and they weren't able to feel God and godliness. And what happens when the wall goes up, right, when you're in this black spot, in this dark space, and you're not connected to your source, right, because the Kalipa blocked it off, oh my gosh, we're not going to be able to go. Moshe Rabbeinu came and screamed at them. Who was he screaming at? The people? No, he was screaming to the energy, the negative energy. Kalipa and Vasitrā, Achara, to use modern terminology in simple English, Kalipa, Vasitrā, Achara, and Yitzchok is basically called negative energy. And he starts screaming at the negative energy. What are you doing? You're a bunch of negative energy. You know that the real energy is God. Go away. And Moshe Rabbeinu, what he did was, he didn't scream at the people. The people are great. The people have faith in God. He screamed at the negative energy, and when he gave the negative energy a speech, you know what happened to the negative energy?
It dissolved.
It went away. What happened when it dissolved and it went away? It dissolved, right, in thin air. What happened now? Nothing new happened. The faith that they always had wasn't blocked. And they said, yeah, sure, we're going. It's almost like a weird thing, right?
Well,
almost like a split personality. It's not a split personality. They have one personality. The Jews always had faith. They were blocked. And Moshe Rabbeinu took off the blockage. And guess what? We're back again. And that's basically what the Alter says is the same thing what happens with the Beinoni. The Beinoni, the truth is, who is the Beinoni? The truth of the truth, the godly soul. Because he has an animal soul, And the animal soul at times, could start gaining traction and building up his fort, up to the point where you have timtum halev, where the heart goes dull, and you don't feel God and godliness, you're not inspired, you're lacking the love, you're lacking the awe. Guess what? It doesn't mean nothing changed. You know what changed was? The person didn't change. Your wall went up. The wall of Kalipa and Sitrah Achra, the wall of negative energy came up there. All you need to do is say, hey, guess what? Negative energy, you're not real. You know what's real? Positive energy. Joy and happiness is real. That's the real truth. You don't have to say negative energy goes away. Or like the Alter Rebbe uses a simple term, a simple analogy of oir and choshech, light and darkness. So light is real. What happens when there's darkness? You don't see the light. So you don't need to bring in new light. Just get rid of the darkness. The light comes automatically. That's the key thing. And it's so important to know this, because what happens all of a sudden you get, oh my gosh, I'm not inspired. You think all of a sudden you became this terrible, you're not a terrible person. You know what happened? This negative energy start to build a big wall, and now you can't feel inspired, you can't be happy, etc. So the biggest enemy that we have, as we said before, naming the enemy, Kalipa, Sitrah Achra, Yetzer Hara, which translate simple English, negative energy. You don't need to bring more positive energy. You just need to say, no negative energy, right? No negative energy zone. Free zone of negative energy. Free zone of Kalipa and Sitrah Achra and Yetzer Hara. You know what you have automatically? A person that has faith. A person that has joy. A person that has happiness. A person that has enthusiasm for God, love for God, and to be in awe of God. And ultimately, when a person does that, you realize that the only reason why God, so to speak, blocked, because everything happens with the power of God, blocked your heart from being inspired, so that you should dig deeper within yourself and use the great power that you have to overcome and to get rid of all the negative energy that's blocking the light to shine in your life. Because as long as the light is shining, you're happy. Life is great and life is wonderful. So as you can tell, this chapter is a very, very important chapter, because this chapter deals with when the war gets intense, and God forbid, the heart gets blockaded with negative energy and it's not inspired. But you have to remember, it's only a blockade. You don't have to create anything new, you just got to get rid of the blockade. And the blockade is what? Kalipa, Sitrah Achra, Yetzer Hara, negative energy. Get rid of the negative energy and you will thrive, you will blossom, just like the Jews. When they got rid of the negative thoughts and the Kalipa, what they had there when they were going into the land of Israel, they didn't get also a new faith. Their real faith, their natural faith came out. So it's very easy. We have the goods, we all have a godly soul, and sometimes we get blocked. And the blockage will stop your heart from being inspired. Get rid of the blockage, get rid of the negative energy, and you will automatically be your natural self, which is happy and successful.